Joan Janis. You have to dig. You have to dig. Joan Janis.
They called me water rat. Why? Because every morning in the summer, I was down where the fishermen were going out with their boats. We're not talking about commercial fishermen. We're not talking about big wharfs. We're talking about a small beach town in New Jersey. And there were some hobbyists who went out every morning in their rowboats. Every morning I was there at the docks, waving them off. One morning, we had something unusual happen. At the boatyard, instead of the usual crowd was not in their own boats. They were all gathered around one boat on the dock. In the boat, I ran over and discovered there were 3 people, 2 of whom I didn't know, one of whom I did know. The one I did know, I hated. I hated him. His name was Paulie. He was a kid that came every summer from North Jersey and came to the beach. His family rented a bungalow for about a week. I had been seeing him every summer, and I didn't like him. His grandmother would give him money to buy ice cream for all the kids. And you know what he would do? We'd go up to that truck and he would buy 5 ice creams and he would keep them all to himself. They would melt in the summer before he would share. He was that kind of a kid. Another thing I didn't like about him was he was pink, extremely pink. And he peeled all the time and turned red. And his grandmother was always telling him to put on lotion. We water rats, we were all brown as acorns, and our hair was just white. We were used to being in the sun. We didn't mess with anything like suntan lotion. We didn't like the people that came from North Jersey, even though our income depended on them. We usually said, "Bennies, go home." We didn't like them, and this is why. They always got in trouble, and that morning was a perfect example. The 2 people in the boat that I didn't know were the uncles of Paulie, Vinny and Dominic. Vinny and Dominic said, "We're the Goomba brothers from Jersey City," and they had rented a boat. This is why everyone was gathered on the dock watching them. They were in long-sleeve shirts. They were in boots with heels on them. These were not boat outfits. These people were going out all day in a rowboat with no hats. These guys had beer, but no food, and they were taking off with Paulie. Dominic kept saying to Paulie, "Paulie, you gotta keep quiet or you're gonna scare the fish. You're gonna scare the fish, Paulie." What fish? We're at the dock. But Paulie kept splashing in the water and splashing in the water. And Dominic said, "If we get out in the bay and you scare the fish, I'm telling you, we're bringing you back and leaving you on the dock." As things progressed later that day, news came that the Coast Guard had to rescue Dominic and Vinny, who'd gotten out into some choppy water. But Paulie was missing. No one knew where Paulie was, and there was a lot of concern that he had drowned when the boat had capsized. I had a feeling that Paulie hadn't been quiet. I had a feeling Dominic might have dropped him off at the dock. And sure enough, when all the hubbub was going on and everyone was looking for Paulie, I told my dad I thought he might be at the dock. And so my dad and I got in the car, and sure enough, we drove down there, and we found him. He was still sitting there in his life preserver, the same color as my shirt. He was crying all day. You could see the tear stains on his face. He was sunburnt. He was so red. He was like a lobster that day. There he was. And he said to my dad and to me, "I hate my Uncle Dom. I hate him. I hate him." And my father said, "Let's take you home." "I don't want to go home. I hate my Uncle Dom." And my father said something. He said, Paulie, there's something wonderful inside of everybody, but sometimes you have to dig. Obviously, everything went okay. Dominic and Vinny ended up going back to New Jersey, North Jersey, doing their Goomba business, whatever it was. And occasionally, over the summers, Paulie and I would see each other. We were never really friends, but we would see each other on the beach. One time, I went back after I'd been to college down the shore, was driving around, and I happened to see Paulie, my age. He was putting his mom in the car, and he was folding up her walker, and putting it in the back seat. And that was the first time I ever saw anything good about Paulie. And I wondered, does he remember that day when his uncles were lost in the bay? Does he remember what my father said to him? There's something wonderful inside of everybody. Sometimes you have to dig.